Is the camera working? Looks good. Good day. My name is Martin Schweiger and I'm a patent attorney in Singapore, and I'm also a powerlifter, competing powerlifter. And today is Tuesday, 25th of March 2025, and it's now 1:15 p.m. I couldn't record videos over the past days because it was always raining. So, and then I just wasn't about doing a video on a stepper and a treadmill or whatever. I did my walk whenever I had time in between. But that meant also that there was not always the best light. For example, I did most of my walking yesterday after 8:30 p.m., 9 p.m. in the evening. Then it's dark and it's not really spectacular. Yeah, but I wanted to show you the good things of Singapore. Now we are in a back alley, and yeah, so what to tell? So many things have happened since last time, the video on Friday, where I did a quite interesting walk through Singapore. I found interesting because I could, yeah, so the last episode I believe is really worth it because I showed you the touristic spots in Singapore. Today is Tuesday, as I said, and Tuesday is my water fasting day. And actually water fasting is not that hard anymore for me because my body has now more metabolic flexibility than before, meaning it can switch between glucose burning mode and ketone burning mode easily. I thought that today it would be a bit difficult because I had a very late meal yesterday. Monday is always my strength training day, and after the strength training I went to see a friend who runs a restaurant, and he closes down, so I promised to drop by. And so I had some vegetable, the spinach, good for the nitric oxide, and also baby octopus that came in a tomato gravy, tomato onion gravy. That means there are carbohydrates. Sometimes these restaurants add sugar, but my friend does not. But still, tomatoes come with carbohydrates. But should be okay. But I thought that my body would complain and refuse to switch to ketonic mode this morning, but funny enough did not. I also had a glass of wine. That is also something that causes the body to switch more reluctantly from glucose burning to ketones burning. But not so. I checked my ketones this morning at 11:30 a.m. I mean, I could have checked earlier, but it doesn't really make sense because I need to give my body time. But then I measured, and the finger pricking test, blood ketone measurement gave me 0.9 millimole per liter ketones in my blood, which is amazing because last week at 2 p.m., not 11:30 as today, last week at 2 p.m. I had only 0.7 millimole per liter ketones in my blood. So I'm very close to the 1.0 millimole per liter threshold for ketones that mark some new level. So my goal would be to get into that, because that would cause my fat cells to release the stored fat into the blood, so the liver can convert it into ketones. And by the way, also acetone. And my acetone meter this morning, the reading was 34 from a scale from 0 to 99. And when I compare with my measurements before, that's a very low ketone, low acetone measurement. When I'm in full ketosis, my breath analyzer would show me 99. It goes into saturation, and that not only for the time I stay into a high ketonic range, but also for middle ketonic range. I believe there's the acetone production goes on even if the ketones in the blood come down, and they do, because there is a fluctuation over day time, and I cannot see any correlation between the ketones and the blood glucose. Also funny. So my blood glucose goes up, and at the same time the ketones can go up. And I have not found out how that works, but it's interesting. So my guess is that there are still deeper levels of ketonic mode that I have not yet explored. So I talk about ketone concentrations of more than 3 millimole per liter. I touched, I believe, I barely scratched 3 last week on Wednesday. But also I must say, Tuesday and Wednesday was raining last week, and I didn't walk through my fast, so I took a nap instead. And so this week is different because I do my 2 fasting days, Tuesday and Wednesday, with having a walk. And let's see how that turns out. Now, at 1 p.m. I just measured my ketones again, and the blood ketones were the same, 0.9 millimole per liter, but the acetone in the breath went up from about 34 to 39. And yeah, that's also something. The breath analyzer is not really an easy measurement tool, different from the blood analysis with the finger prick method. Because for the breath analyzer, there are several ways to influence the measurement with a bad measurement procedure. For example, as the breath analyzer measures the concentration of the acetone in the lung, in the air in the lung, it's important to get the same air quality, probably not, to get the same way of breathing out. And what you can do is you can dilute the air in the lungs by breathing in and only then breathing out into the breath analyzer. And that's a known old trick. If you get alcohol control for traffic police, then the best is to breathe in and out violently for a dozen of times and clean all the air from the alcohol that sits there in the lungs, and only then breathe out the fresh air. And also, I mean, I heard, because in my lifetime I was 2 times in a street block for alcohol, and I had to try only once. Yeah, once I was a passenger, and the driver had to blow into that measurement tool, and once I had to do it myself. And it was always very easy for me, because I never drink and drive. I really don't think this is good, and I recommend to not do it. That's important. So you should do the contrary of what the alcohol test people recommend to you, which means I would recommend a shallow breathing period of a minute or 2, and then breathe out to a degree that you just can breathe out for 10 seconds into the breath analyzer from the deepest point of your lung, so that you get all the accumulated acetone there. And then you repeat. There's always a certain time for the breath analyzer to shut down and boot up, half a minute. So I don't know, I still need to experiment. That's why I measure 3 times and take the average. I believe that would give a reliable measurement result, especially if you stick to the routine that is given by the machine. Actually, machine is a little thing like that. It's a pocket analyzer, runs on 2 batteries. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm doing my ketone experiment, and I will update you. And that goes well with my approach for self-improvement of health and fitness, to only improve what you can measure. If I cannot measure it, and when I say measure, I mean even a feeling would be a measurement. So I write up, I have a certain feeling and classify it from 0 to 10, and then I can live from there. One example for a feeling is, in the beginning, when I started this fasting last year in August, I always had this itchy feeling over the body, all over the body, and that signals me that my body is complaining that it must move out from the comfortable glucose burning mode to the ketones burning, because that is an effort that causes pain. And so my body would complain. And that is the itchy feeling, the complaint. And what I can tell you is that there's no more itchy feeling nowadays. So I can easily switch from blood glucose burning to ketones burning. So the fat burning status or state is easy to reach for me. And yeah, so my goal is to define a certain set of measurement instruments that really are the bare minimum of what is needed to get a metabolism back in order. And what I can tell you so far, I have identified a number of those. And of course, one is the ketones measurement tool. I try to derive a procedure so I do not need to do the finger pricks all the time, because that's quite cumbersome. And I don't think that I need that precision. It's actually only a question of how many days do I do the fasting, and then am I now over the threshold for ketonic or not. And that depends very much on whether I eat something or not, which is clear, right? And just the question is, ultimately, would I be in the saturation mode for my pocket analyzer for acetone in my breath or not? Because doing a measurement for one day, that's one of the overhead bridges. Yeah. See? There's a three-way highway going through the town, and there are overhead bridges so that you can cross the street. They come with a lift. Whoa, can you see this? I really... what a pity. Singapore really has a good medical system. So if you see someone with such a back, this is, I would say, self-inflicted. Because nobody needs to run around like that. That is also emphasizing that Singapore as a culture is highly building on your own responsibility. And the government is supporting that one by giving incentives where other governments would pay subsidies, fully subsidized. And I must say, I really like the Singapore style. I really love this country. I really love this country. Back to the responsibility, self-responsibility probably. And lack of it. And I'm talking about what damage people can do to their own body. I mean, I was lucky because I've told you 100,000 times. 1 year and 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with a metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is, actually I was not diagnosed with a syndrome. Doctor said you have diabetes. The nurse said I have diabetes. And diabetes is a metabolic deficiency, but only one. And the entire problem is a metabolic syndrome. And you wouldn't only see it in your diabetes. You see it in everything, inclusive plaque in your arteries, high blood pressure, thyroid, bad thyroid measurement values, feeling tired all the time, erectile dysfunction if you have it. What else? Many. Cancer. Cancer is a metabolic disorder. And from what I think is my hypothesis, different from what many school doctors would say, they say cancer is a genetic disease. And yes, you can see cancer cells are genetically deformed. But there's another point of view in science, and they say first the metabolic syndrome, and from that follow all the diseases that are related to metabolism. Among others, genetic deformations of cells and their components, like mitochondria. Interesting. So noisy. Someone working here. So, I would say my diagnosis, me being diagnosed with a number of metabolic disorders, was a blessing in disguise, because I could then address it, and I have successfully addressed it. There's nothing left. I have reversed the plaque in my arteries, for example, most spectacular. It's almost gone. And many other things. Blood pressure. Blood pressure is still a problem if I don't look into my nitric oxide level. And that brings me to my second measurement instrument, which is the nitric oxide saliva test strips. Those test strips measure the nitric oxide in my saliva, and they're either white or red, and then there's dark red. Then depending on the food that I eat or the supplements that I take, I would have a red test result or a white one. And when I have the white one, then my blood pressure can only be kept under control if I do relaxation exercises. While when my nitric oxide in the saliva shows red test results, my blood pressure is not an issue at all. By the way, blood pressure, there are two values, right? Being an engineer by training, I know already. So the one is the basic pressure of the system. This is the lower part, and the lower figure, like 120 to 80. Huh? The lower part, the lower value should better be low, and the higher value can vary according to what you do. Exercise, walk, sleep, and so. But the lower pressure probably is the more important one. This is what all the experts tell me. And it's a bit like playing soccer. You have a stand leg, which is from... I can shoot with both legs, but some people can only shoot with one leg. And then one leg needs to be there for standing on the ground, while the other leg is used for playing the ball. So the stand leg would be the constant value, the lower value, and the play leg would be the upper value. And that one can vary. And if you have flexible arteries, and that brings me to my third measurement instrument, which is the Oura ring. That's very cool. The Oura ring has a measurement that measures your flexibility and the flexibility of the arteries. And it's done by some echo measurement. I didn't carefully check, but the Oura ring software gives it out as a metabolic age, or is it arterial age? I don't know, but it would give you a value, and that value can vary, and this measures the stiffness of the arteries. The stiffer the arteries, the more crucial is to keep a low blood pressure, because stiffness would follow in crack if overstretched. And you don't want a crack, because then the crack would need to be healed, that blood clots would be formed somewhere, transported to that place, the blood clot would patch up the crack, and then you have a patch in the artery, and that would mean that also the blood clot can do other nonsense in your brain, for example, or in your lung. That's then emboli. Yeah. So Oura ring is my third measurement tool, and it measures mainly. I use it for measuring my sleep quality. Then the sleep quality would tell me about whether or not I had alcohol the night before, because one glass of wine like yesterday and my sleeping heart rate goes up by 15%. So bad. So I got several people contacted me, and they say, "Hey Martin, are you serious? This thing with the alcohol? You want to 100% stop? No more drinking alcohol?" And I said, actually would be healthier to not do so. But again, social, like yesterday, have a good meal, and then a glass of wine is something I believe belongs together. I mean, I love eating, and when you love eating, then you also love a good drink that comes with the food. And for Bavarian food, that's beer, a cold beer for me. And international food, Italian, French. Then that's wine. For Japanese, that's sake, rice wine. Not so bad actually, despite being made of wine. And for Chinese food, that would be tea, but you would have some baijiu, which is the Chinese vodka that has this taste of l'aqua thinner. So do I now walk back? I have half an hour and I'm here. Actually I do a full walk and then take the train back. So I do a solid 1 hour walk. And then see what my ketones say. So Oura ring, yes. The step counter, then the sleep quality, then the cardiovascular age, the flexibility of the arteries, then the sleeping quality, the oxygen. Actually the oxygen mode helped me a lot to improve my snoring, because the more you snore, the lower the blood oxygen, and the Oura ring measures the blood oxygen. So higher blood oxygen means also no snoring. It's more healthy. And also snoring is a sign of your metabolic disorder. So again, I want to say, so if you want to treat a metabolic disorder, number one, the first thing is to recognize that you have one. And having diabetes is not a metabolic disorder. Diabetes is a metabolic... We have metabolic syndrome, which is a conglomerate of metabolic disorders. So once you start to improve one metabolic disorder in natural ways, that will also improve the other metabolic disorders that you have. So the first thing is identify the metabolic syndrome by measuring all the what belongs to the metabolic syndrome, the various disorders. Artery plaque, blood pressure, thyroid, erectile dysfunction, you name it. And then start to improve them in a natural way, but not by taking drugs, unless you really need it to avoid dying. There are some people who need medical drugs. For example, if you have so many artery blockages that you cannot properly breathe anymore, that would mean that you need to do something like putting a stent. So loud here. I show you the traffic. Train. Yeah. get to the fourth essential measurement equipment for treating a metabolic syndrome, and that's the blood glucose meter. And you need two, the continuous one and also the finger prick one for calibration purpose. And trust me, if you're diagnosed with any of the metabolic disorders I'm talking about, then you would immediately see how to improve the high blood glucose, and you would heal yourself within 3 weeks from diabetes 2. It's such fast. 3 weeks. In my case, if it works for me, it will also work for you. I'm very sure. I've tried out various continuous blood glucose meters. Actually 3. One was made by Abbott. It's the most expensive one. Something like 2 weeks cost you $100 or so. The first 2 weeks are free. Then I have tried out the Sino Farm, whatever. A Chinese CGM. Mechanically is a bit on the lower side. It has its flaws mechanically, but it's possible to use it from a measurement point of view. It's not really reliable, but that doesn't really matter. The problem that it has, it comes with an offset of the measurement value, and that's why the calibration with the finger prick blood glucose meter would help. So for each newly installed continuous blood glucose meter, you need to do a calibration measurement, and then you're good to go. And that works well for me. And this is a very reliable one. I've used 5 or 6 of them so far, and they all worked very well. Except for the offset, which doesn't really disturb me, because being a measurement and control engineer by training, offsetting a faulty sensor is easy for me. And then there's a third one, the company Ottai, O-T-T-A-I. I don't know where they are from, but actually they have a English UK website. Delivery is very fast to Singapore. Could also be China. Don't know. So I've used 3 Ottai CGMs, and 2 of them stopped working after 8 days, so 9 days. So I find that's quite crappy. I still have one left, and I don't use it myself. So the Sino Farm, Sino Made, Sino whatever was quite cheap. Something like $30 or $40. And the same for the Ottai. So if I could choose, I would take the Chinese Sino Farm over the Ottai, and not really the Abbott. The Abbott sensor, I believe, is so good that you, even if you have diabetes 1, you could use it, because the measurements are quite reliable and also smooth out So I believe you get what you pay for, right? You pay twice the price, or 3 times, and you get very high quality. But I must say, for me, I'm healthy now. And just for measuring my body values, for deciding what I do as a treatment for my body, those cheap sensors are good enough. My next sensor, I buy the Chinese made Sino farm, and not the Otai. I'm now back to the self-responsibility. Isn't it called self-responsibility? I mean, that responsibility that comes with a responsibility and also urgency that you show your own body. And I'm 60 years old, you know, probably. And biblically spoken, I'm now in the last quarter of my life. Because in Psalm 90:10 also, it says that our lifetime is 70 plus 10, which means 3 times 20 plus 10 is 60 plus 10 is 70. Or if you're very strong, then it's 40, which is 4 times 20. So I believe I'm strong, and the Bible says it in a literal way. Strong means like ready for battle, not mentally strong. Noise again. I've shown you the lawnmowers, right, before? Here. And I must say that my priorities visibly shift now. And while I could abuse my body for achieving my plans when I was young, I don't do this anymore. So, for example, I at one point in time decided that I wanted to be competing powerlifter, weightlifter. Then I found out what is my niche, and that was super heavyweight. Was okay. But an accident that has nothing to do with my sport knocked me out for 4 months from lifting heavy weights. And that caused my metabolic syndrome to surface. It was probably there already, but not visible in a sense. Yeah, I remember signs like I had a toenail fungus that didn't go away, and after I discovered that my blood sugar is high. Then I started to treat my blood sugar, and as a side product of the blood sugar treatment, the toenail fungus disappeared. So no more toenail fungus today. Nice what you can do towards Bishan. But what I did is I got a warning shot in my annual checkup, which I highly recommend to everybody. Do the annual checkup after you reached your, I would say, last quarter of the life. And that's why we are here today together. I'm doing my daily walk, 1 hour. I look after my body. I have received very sad news. There's a relative of a friend of mine in Germany, and he is his in-law somehow. And my friend told me that his in-law passed away. So why did he tell me about his in-law? Because we met 25 years ago at my friend's marriage. And this was a normal guy, a bit shorter than me. My friend sent me the old photo from the marriage. And then he explained to me that he became very fat. So fat that he couldn't walk anymore. And he was driving his car even for minor errands that you could walk. And that reminded me to myself, because when I had the accident with a 4 months immobility, I used my motorbike even to ride to the hawker center 200 meters down the road. So, and my friend's in-law had all the metabolic disorders that you can imagine. Erectile dysfunction, I don't even need to mention. That would be the smallest problem for him. But he couldn't breathe anymore, couldn't walk, snored, was fat, was immobile, got statins and other drugs. And then I asked, how did he die? And you would be surprised. He died at home, but he fell in his messy apartment and broke a rib. And that rib poked into his lung. And he was put in a hospital, or no, he even drove there. No, I don't know how. He didn't die at home, he died in a hospital. But he drove there in his own car because he felt so miserable that he really was seeking help. And that's what I can tell you from my own perspective. If you suffer from a metabolic disorder or even a whole syndrome, then the body is in a very unstable position. One minor thing from outside and that might push you over the cliff. And that's what happened to my friend's in-law. The broken rib got into the lung, that weakened the whole body. What it did is he walked even less, stayed at home, and that weakened the body further. And then you're in a downward spiral. So the body was so weak that even a minor thing like a broken rib caused his death. And many people start like me, or also my friend's in-law. At one point in time you don't move anymore, no sports, unhealthy food with carbohydrates, you put on weight, and so on and so on. Only very few are lucky as I was. That number one, I was top fit when my accident happened. I was invited to the World Championship in powerlifting. I was number 4 of the world rank list in powerlifting, in my age and weight class. I was a competing athlete and I trained 3 times per week, and I was very strong. I took part in in competitions all the time. That's how my body could cope with the weight. But in 4 months, the whole thing turned bad. And if I had not changed my lifestyle 1 year and 2 months ago, then today I would be on 5 or 6 medications. My friend's in-law didn't. He's now dead. And he's only 4 years my senior. So I can really say that the same could have happened to me if I had not changed my lifestyle. Okay, I may have an advantage because of my background in measurement and control engineering. And today there's an AI. I put the link into the description below. It's the Strongman Healthy Living GPT on ChatGPT. It's trained with hundreds of articles about metabolism, and it's very useful. I believe that it's better than having a medical doctor explaining to you things, because number one, if they're not there when you need the explanation. Mostly because you can only see them once a month or twice a month or whatever. And then it's 20 minutes or 10 minutes and you have one question, and then that's not helpful. With my ChatGPT, I can ask many times, and I do, and it's always insightful. Among others, for example, I told you that I accumulated a list of 29 or 30 supplements plus 10 foodstuffs that are recommended to eat when you treat metabolic disorders. And I thought that's too much. Number one is expensive, and number two is also too much to swallow. And I believe it's also overdoing things because they have overlaps. with their effects. So in short words, I entered that list of supplements into my ChatGPT and reduced it to 11. I could further reduce it to 5, but then I couldn't address all the issues I want to address. For example, since my diabetes was discovered, I realized that I have this numb feeling in my feet, and that comes from or may come from a nerve damage because of the insulin. And I'm taking vitamin B12 benfotiamine in high doses, and I just want to see whether and how I can influence that one. I give it a try, 2 bottles, just 2 months or so, and my feeling is either, it's very simple actually, is the numb feeling there or is it gone? And I believe it's already better, but I cannot quantify it. So I keep that one, and the other one is I want to treat my nitric oxide that comes with 2 different supplements plus 3 or 4 foodstuffs that I eat more. And the third one is I want to treat my lipid panel, which is in general the cholesterols and the LDL and the HDL lipids. Oh, that's interesting. There's a highway bridge again. You remember that before, right? We had this before. I walked along a highway and then I ended up on the highway, which was very bad. But this is an interesting place because people can sit here, and there's a stool, and probably you can fish. And there's another chair here. Nice bird. Yeah. I could try to make it over there, but I believe this is not a good idea. So I go back to that bridge over the other side. Yeah. Starting here and going over there. There's an industrial estate which I know, but they're all closed down, so what a pity. So, and also I want to improve my liver values, and that's why I take some other supplements and I stay away from alcohol. It's not that it's serious, but I just can see that this is my, So for me, for the next 2 to 3 months, that is in the foreground. I believe I will not be able to reverse the nitric oxide production, because that takes place in the artery liners, and that is also influenced by age. Now we are 1 hour into the movie, and you cannot reverse age, right? So Probably I will do my nitric oxide stuff until the end of my life. Yeah. So what I can tell you is this advice is very valuable, and ChatGPT gives it to you almost for free. The $25 per month or 50, I don't know. I use it on a daily basis. Ah, look, this is where they keep the funeral trucks. Nice. I love industrial estates. Yeah. I'm so far away from home. Now there's another funeral truck. Yeah. So I'm through with what I wanted to tell you. I will update you tomorrow. It will be interesting. Tomorrow is my dry fasting day, and I'm already excited to know the measurements of my acetone and the ketone today after the 1 hour walk. And especially then tomorrow, dry fasting, and then having a 1 hour walk into the dry fasting. And I can tell you already what will happen. My breath analyzer will say that my acetone is in saturation mode, acetone measurement, saturation mode, and then the ketones will hopefully be 3-ish and more. I really would want to see a ketone in my blood at the 5. So, oh, that's interesting. They have a truck here. That's what I did for a living when I was 16 to 19 years old. Vehicle repair. It was very interesting. I learned a lot, more than from studying mechanical engineering. That's it for today. Goodbye.